Welcome to the More Cheese, Less Whiskers podcast. My name is Dean Jackson, and this week I'm very excited. I just had an amazing conversation with my friend Nicholas Kusmich. Now, Nicholas is a bona fide Facebook expert. I mean, he's at the top of the game, and we spent a very long time on the phone. Normally, when we do a More Cheese, Less Whiskers episode, it's with the intention of hatching evil schemes for the guest. And we did a little bit of that, but very cleverly what I was able to do is turn it into an almost 2-hour consultation for me to hatch some evil schemes for how I could get all the knowledge that Nicholas has about running Facebook ads and hatch my own evil schemes for taking his knowledge and applying it to the email mastery program that I'm currently running a case study group with, but with eyes to opening that up to everybody in the new year, and Facebook being a big pillar of that. So I got some incredible advice, some incredible insight, and I had an amazing time talking with Nicholas here. And you'll see we had some little surprises at the end here. And I think we've created a really great resource for you if you're at all curious about running Facebook ads and how that could apply to your business. So enjoy this episode. Grab a cup of coffee first because you're going to need to be fully caffeinated. It's a little bit of a long one. Nicholas Kusmich.
Hello, Dean.
I presume. I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Well, I'm excited to hatch some evil schemes today.
I love hacking evil schemes.
Well, we're recording right now. We got the whole hour to ourselves to hatch whatever evil schemes we can come up with.
Right.
Why don't you set the context, kind of tell what you do and what kind of where we're going to focus today.
Yeah, well, I mean, in short, we have been spending, I don't even know how many years now, since Facebook released their ads platform in beta, which was several years ago now. We have been literally spending all of that time figuring out a couple of things. We've been figuring out how social behavior works, how people on this particular type of platform like to respond to certain types of messages. Mm-hmm. How do we do direct response marketing on a platform that is not necessarily direct response, but it's much more socially driven? How do we do that? And fortunately, I think the universe just kind of aligned in our favor, and we've managed to get some incredible ROIs and work with some incredible thought leaders that represent some mega industries on the planet today. So that's really what we've been focusing on and working on, really just making the advertising platform on Facebook be user-friendly for the entrepreneur and the business owner, and really figuring out how to make that work for them.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think the big opportunity is? I mean, what kind of things would you like to focus on and
Well, we can focus on a couple of things, Dean, depending on where people are really at with stuff. I think for those who are not yet on the platform, it's really identifying the opportunity that lies before us there. For those who are on the platform and just trying to struggle with, how to make it work, I think there's some things that we can talk about there. And then for those who are really making it work, how do you scale without compromising your ROI? That's another thing that we can potentially discuss. So I'm comfortable going in any one of those directions.
Cool. So, well, let's make it useful for you. So, what would be the thing that you would like to focus on? What would be the thing that would be most helpful for you here? If we were to say, if we were to look at applying the 8 profit activators to what you're doing, where would you say would be the big opportunity?
At the end of the day, the opportunity for me anyways is getting people aware of, what the potential is and what they're doing. And then from that, potentially have them come out to one of our intensives where we could do a lot of that heavy lifting for them.
Okay.
So for me, that kind of will revolve around, my 3C type customer journey process, which, the 3 C's stand for click, capture, and convert. And it's a simple kind of three-stage upfront, top of funnel kind of lead generation process. And we can kind of talk about some of the elements that are involved with that.
Perfect.
We can talk about a little bit about kind of ad formulas that are working really well. We can talk a little bit about what makes a good lead magnet versus what doesn't, which is, again, all part of, the click is all about the ad, the capture is all about the lead magnet and the landing page, and the convert is all about what happens on that thank you page and some strategies we use there. So. And
the follow all about, that's where the emails come in too, right?
Of course. And that's where definitely you can take over.
Yeah. So if you're looking at somebody who's kind of coming into a situation where they've got a great process to help people get a result,
sure.
Then the front end of this, kind of like where Facebook advertising would fall into it, is what I would call the profit activator 2 and 3, where we get somebody to raise their hand and then we get to start a dialogue with them. So maybe, and that's really where you've spent the majority of your time, is really figuring out that front end of the funnel of getting somebody in contact with people, like generating new leads.
Essentially, yeah, the front end, top of funnel kind of lead generation side of things.
Right. Okay. Well, then let's do this then. Maybe what we can do is we can kind of turn the tables, and we can do this for let's use me as an example then. So we can say, like, if we're saying, if I look at in a situation like my email mastery program.
Right. Sure.
So I just launched a new case study group. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. Started out doing full page ads in Success Magazine, driving people to a landing page where they could download the email mastery book. And then I've got a great email engagement sequence that will get people that want to work with me on improving their email sales process into my email mastery case study program, where I work with them and document everything and use it as a case study for other people to kind of see how applying my methods can work. So that, where we basically pick up with that, is from the moment somebody opts in. Now, I was using the full page ads in Success as the lead-in to that, and we were getting about a 68% opt-in on the page for the landing page. And now, if I wanted to take, and I've done some limited Facebook advertising on that, how would your process kind of guide me in what's possible there? So if I say, what would be the thing that would, and maybe set some context for what I could, expect to pay for opt-ins or things, however you would measure it with your experience.
Sure. So in this particular case, we'd be looking at exactly what you have here, and then what I would do to approach it to kind of transition some of that to Facebook, essentially.
Right.
Fantastic. Okay. I know. So, I mean, what I would do essentially is first we do a quick analysis of the assets that you have. Obviously, you have your email mastery book that you're being offered, and what I might actually suggest is to take a look at the book. And I know, I mean, I have a copy of it, but I would take a look at the book and see if there are elements that we might be able to pull out to make even a shorter version of it, or to make a standalone, some sort of a downloadable PDF type thing. What we've noticed generally on Facebook is the reality that it's a noisy marketplace. So unlike some of the other platforms out there, it is a noisy marketplace, and a lot of people are promising the same sort of things to the industry or to the market in general. So what we're finding is working of all the types of quote unquote lead magnets that can be offered. Typically, and there's two reasons for this, but typically something that can come in the form of a 1 to 3 page downloadable PDF that has some very actionable insights and nuggets that could be applied. Has the highest desire and the lowest lead cost up front. And I think that has to do with very low resistance. I mean, everyone likes something that's actionable, and everybody likes something that doesn't require too much time and or money. I believe we have two currencies that we kind of transact with, one being money and one being time. And if we ask, you know, the old saying, Dean, that says there's no harm in asking. I believe in today's social media world that there is, in fact, harm in asking. And if you ask for too much up front, that it actually can do a detriment to your business in general, but even specifically to someone's first impression of you. So a general formula that we like to use when we're talking about lead magnets is SAGE, SAGE. And essentially, so anyone who has any form of asset that they can offer in exchange for an email, we say try to have it follow the SAGE principle or the SAGE formula. Now, S stands for short. We like to say that your first encounter with someone in a cold market should allow them to consume that content in about 4 to 7 minutes. Anything too much longer than that offers issues of incompleteness. So even if you can get a good lead for a good cost for, let's say, a 55-minute video, or even an ebook that will take some time to read, I would say that even if you could get a good cost lead for that, the detriment to that is if someone does in fact opt in for it but doesn't complete the content that you're giving them, you're almost psychologically training them to say, hey, I'm going to give you content and it's okay for you not to complete it. And that's kind of the worst thing, because if later on we get them on some sort of a webinar or we put a sales page in front of them or something like that, if they have this thing in the back of their mind psychologically telling them, well, the last time they gave me content, I didn't finish it, so it's okay to do that this time, that's probably not the best place that we want them to be. So as a general rule of thumb, we like to say that the S stands for short, 4 to 7 minute consumption time, just because people's attention spans, especially on social media, unlike other platforms, is very short. In fact, Dean, I have this little Post-it note right beside my work computer that says, Nick, you're already out of time. Just to remind me that I have split seconds to try and capture attention and to get someone to take some sort of an action. So again, S stands for short. A in SAGE stands for action-oriented or actionable. I think, due to the past, back in the day, everything was about information. It was just give out some great information and then it'll, attract the right flock to you. I think today that has changed slightly, and where information is a commodity. Within everyone's pocket and their cell phone, you can find out just about any information you need to about anything, thanks to tools like the Googles. So what we like to say is, rather than just offering information, we like to say offer something that's insightful. And to me, the only difference between information and insight is information is just that, whereas insight is what you can do with particular pieces of information in order to get a desired result. So the last thing we want to do is be presented in our marketplace as people who just have really good content. I want to be known in my marketplace as someone who has very actionable content that actually gets me results when I apply that content. So when we're thinking of the A here, again, actionable, we just want to say, well, how can we take the content that I already have and repurpose it in such a way where someone can take an immediate action and get an immediate result, which actually takes
and that's what was that was really I'm completely in alignment with that. And that was the whole approach of teaching people the 9-word email. Very
Right.
simple concept. That was what the full page ad was, essentially an article
Right.
about that taught somebody in that one article everything they would need to know to take action and send a 9-word email. And
Right.
my approach to that was just that I took the approach of what would it take for me to make that page the most valuable page in the magazine.
Right.
Right. Like taking it from adding value, getting somebody to take action, but even taking that action, it created a sense of, well, I want more, because they're going to say, I told them the whole thing, but then there might be a thing of, well, what do I put in the subject line? Or what do I do when people respond? And so the whole lead in was to download the book, where I would give them the
whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. And that was really that's a powerful thing. So my thought, and I've had some success in using that article as kind of a duplicating that in a Facebook environment to give somebody that first taste of a result, and then get them to leave their name and their email address to get the book. But sorry to interrupt on that. What's the G?
No, so it's almost like you read my mind, because that's a perfect segue to the G. The G stands for kind of goal-oriented.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is every prospect is on some sort of a journey. They are where they are, and they are trying to get to where they want to be. And so if I see it as kind of a linear path, someone is at point A and they're trying to get to point Z, and there's obviously all these steps in between. Now, what I'd like to see about that is a lot of people in their magnet or in some of their initial content attempt to get someone from A to Z in that one piece of content.
Yeah.
And the reality of that is, it often causes overwhelm, so the person never gets to do anything.
Yeah.
So I would say, from the goal-oriented standpoint, we are looking to get someone from point A to point B, not to point D or F or G or anywhere down the road. And it exactly speaks to what you spoke to here, in the sense where if you can take someone just one step closer to their desired goal, a couple of beautiful things happen. Number one, just like you said, whenever you help someone get a little bit closer, they are asking, okay, well, what's next? How do I take that next step with you? You've helped me with step one. I want to take step two. But another beautiful psychological thing that happens is these people usually, and there's few exceptions to this rule, but anyone who's looking for a solution to something is typically, you're not the first person they've come to. They've explored solutions in many other places, and the reality is, if they're continuing to look, it means because they haven't made any progress. So in this case, if you've actually allowed them to make that one step of progress even closer, this could be the first time they've actually ever made any progress, or at least have the perception of progress. And then B, what that does to them is say, well, not only have I made progress, but I am now associating that progress with Dean. He's the only guy who's actually let me get a little bit closer to this. And so now their association or their perception of you as the person that helped them get that progress, you're being seen in a great light, and you're being seen as the authority, and you're being seen as someone who's credible, because they probably, again, never made that progress in their past, and now they are, and they're associating that progress with you.
And
so
I saw that all the time. What would happen is people would, because in my follow-up process, I would ask people, in the second engaging kind of email with them, had they tried a 9-word email yet? And they would tell me, wow, I've been emailing with these people for ever, not gotten any response. I sent the 9-word email, and immediately they got they responded. So they're amazed that it's a magic trick that I can show them, and they're immediately now paying attention and want to know,
Sure.
where do we go from there?
And probably much more apt to show up to whatever you offer next. So if that was a case study, teleseminar training, or anything like that, the resistance has probably completely been blown out of the water now. And now they are looking for that next opportunity to engage with you on some level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I look at one of the things that you said, that this completely aligns with my separation of Profit Activator 2, which is compel people to raise their hands, and Profit Activator 3, which is to educate and motivate, is I talk about that as separating the compelling from the convincing. And that all I want to do initially to get somebody to raise their hand is essentially we're turning an invisible prospect into a visible prospect. And that's the hard line that I'm drawing. And that's kind of where, I like your idea of click, capture, convert. And the capture is really about compelling, because that's an impulsive thing. People say, oh, I want that.
Right.
And now, because they asked for that, now you have the opportunity to convince them, which is part of that conversion process.
Yeah, I like that so much. When I was thinking about it, Dina, also that kind of alludes to what you're talking about here. I found that there are three major reasons why someone will not transact with us. Now, I'm sure there's more, but these are kind of the three reasons that I found. One is because they don't trust us. And that can oftentimes be solved with, good copy and proper social proof and all that other stuff. The second thing, and this is what it relates to what we're talking about here, is they don't trust themselves to actually follow through on the actions that you presented for them. And if that's the case, then there's no greater way to help them build confidence in themselves by actually giving them that bite-sized thing that allows them to take that one step forward, because then they actually make that process, and now they're like, oh, well, I think I can actually do this, whereas maybe they didn't earlier. And I love your 9-word email example, because probably they've been sending email after email after email, and they're like, oh, no, Dean's going to give me some complicated email strategy. I don't know if I can do it all. And then you kind of surprise them and say, hey, just send these 9 words out and see what happens. And they send the 9 words out, and then they get a response, and they're like, geez, well, this can actually work, and their confidence is taken to a whole nother level.
Yeah. As soon as that happens, that's exactly it. Their pupils dilate. They get the squirts of dopamine. They're, wait, somebody replied. That's like this burst of positive energy. And now they're like, this is something, there's something to this. So what were the three? No trust, don't trust themselves. And then
so they don't trust you. They don't trust themselves. And the third thing that we found is that they feel like they have time to make a decision. I don't know about you, Dean, but there's so many times where I saw something and I'm like, oh, I really need to get that. So I'll open it up in a new tab in Chrome and say, I'll get back to that sometime. And then, of course, we never get back to it and gets lost in the ethers. And so I think, this might be the outside the realm of this conversation, but if there are things that we can do to ethically remove that time barrier and put a bit of a time constraint on it, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. My thing has been, and I'm right on track with you about the short things, in that, I've created a whole company around creating the 90-minute books, which is a very simple thing that's short, easy to consume, but there's still something very valuable perception-wise about a book, and that people also get the chance to, as opposed to a video, say, like if you're using a video as an opt in now to watch my 55-minute video, or to watch this training program, or come to my webinar, or whatever it is, the price of admission for that is that it's just like you're saying, they can delay that because I don't have time to watch a video right now. But you get to, if it's a book that they can gather, this is the whole thing, is that they can gather I can take action and get this book, even if I'm not intending to read it right now.
Right.
I've reached my goal of capture. I'm not so concerned that you read the book right now because I know that if I've got you to ask for it, in my mind, that's 80% of the job of the book.
Sure.
Is just to get you to raise your hand. Now I'm patient enough to know that I can convert over a longer period of time now because I've got so much opportunity to connect with you, you know?
Right.
So I want to go back and kind of I think I've missed some of the sage. We've got nested loops here. That's what happens when you get creative people going off on tangents here. So we got short, actionable. What was the G?
The goal-oriented.
Goal-oriented, okay. And so that's where I look at it that, I look at your whole, your method here of click, capture, convert is really, if you could have the greatest conversion sequence in the world, but if you don't have somebody clicking on the ad that gets them to your landing page where you have the opportunity to get them to leave their name and email, nothing is going to happen. And that, I often see that people try and do too much future pacing. They try and like you said, take somebody from A to Z, when really the only thing that the only purpose of the ad in my mind is to get somebody to click on and go to the landing page. And the only purpose of the landing page is to get them to leave their name and their email address. So
yeah, or in other words, to capture the lead. I think you bring up a good point here that a lot of people kind of maybe oversee is that each part of the sequence ultimately has its primary purpose, and you shouldn't be looking at trying to. I see this happen all the time. I see people writing Facebook ads trying to sell the thing at the end of the line.
I get it. Yeah.
And there's so many steps in between, again, so I believe the same sort of thing. The point of the ad is to get the click. The point of the landing page is to capture the lead. And the point of your follow-up sequence, obviously, is to convert prospect into client and or customer. And if you just realize that each of those things do, in fact, have their purpose and you stay within the realm of that purpose, you're probably going to do way better off than trying to jump the gun and go too far ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So have I missed the E, or are we now leading into the E?
Well, which it kind of is a perfect summary. So the E, in fact, is easy. So I think there's this, and you're a master at this. I think there's so many people who, especially in the internet world, have come up with this idea that the more complicated I can make something, the smarter I appear to be, and, the more I can charge them for fixing up some of this complications in their life. When I found the opposite to be true, and I think you're a living example of this with the 9-word email or the 90-minute book. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that your offer and the implementation of the content can literally be understood and executed by a 5-year-old. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration.
No, I get it.
We just don't want to be the people who are making things overcomplicated, because again, then that gets in the way. If someone feels like it's complicated, paralysis of analysis kicks in. They're thinking, "Gee, there's no way I can do this," and so they abandon the process altogether. Whereas if they see it and it's like, oh, well, I could send out a 9-word email, or I could get on an interview and do a 90-minute book, all of a sudden, there's obviously a whole bunch of psychological benefits going on, but that definitely
and there's part of the thing is that's always been my strategy, is to kind of lead by example. Like I'm showing people, I use 90-minute books for myself. I mean, that's really the way that I go about it, and I use the 9-word emails myself. That's kind of the my mode of operating here. So I'm evidencing that it actually works. And I've used for the 90-minute book. We've had great success with Facebook. Using the 90-minute book offer of download the 90-minute book, which is a book that is the exact personification of it because I
It
use
is a 90-minute
the
book.
process. It is. I always joke. It's like if you're a Seinfeld fan, it's like Kramer's coffee table book about coffee tables.
Right,
You know?
right.
I mean, that's essentially what it is. So one of the most successful Facebook campaigns that I've used for that is to run Facebook ads against some of my friends' audiences. When I first developed this, I would run 90-minute book offers against Brendan Burchard's people who like Brendan Burchard. And this was, at the time, Brendan didn't have as big, he's really blown up now in the whole personal development thing. Yeah. But at the time, his main thing was the Millionaire Messenger, right? Like that's a perfect match for us, people who have a message that they want to get out into the world. So I would run the Facebook ads and get people to come to the landing page. Very simple. And that's one thing that I've found is the simpler the landing page, the better. I've removed everything from it except get the book,
Sure.
And then when people would opt in, then I would send them an email that would debrief for them what happened with the Facebook campaign. So I run the ads, and I did it because, again, thinking about what the end result is, I wanted to think about how people could use this for themselves, that they could see themselves doing it themselves, right? So I get to a point where, I would like to and get to spend as much money as I can every day to get people to opt in. But I know that most people who are thinking about getting started with this would say, well, of course you could do that. If you could spend $1,000 a day or $2,000 a day on ads, that's the thing. But I wanted it to fit for them, what they could see themselves doing. So the campaign that I would run would spend $150 a day and do it from Friday to Sunday. And then on Tuesday morning, I would send them a message that said Facebook campaign results inside. Yeah. And I would say, hey, Nick, just thought you might like to see what happened with the Facebook campaign I was running this weekend. And I broke it all down. Here's what happened. I ran these newsfeed ads to people who like me or Brendan Burchard. And if you know me, I like things simple. If you know Brendan, he's all about packaging your message. And then just say, here's what happened. We got, this many clicks, and I got 340 people left their name and their email address. And we break it all down for, we got 60% of the people who came to the page left their name and their email. And, it would cost, I think it was $1.80 or something for the opt-ins. And show it, breaking that down, showing how that all worked out, and knowing that that's going to fuel their desire or their confirmation that, wow, if I had a 90-minute book, I could do that same thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's so beautiful. I think in media, they call that like meta pop, or the idea of like almost unveiling the curtain and letting people see what's actually going on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then in the PS of that, we would just say, if you'd like us to help you write a book, here's how it works, and explain the whole process and how we do what they have to do, and then all the things that we do for them. They just have to, we do a brainstorm call, get the title and the outline, then we record an interview with them, and then they're done. and we take over from there, and we get it transcribed, we edit it, we create the cover, we lay it out in the book, we get it up on CreateSpace, we set up a landing page, we do the whole thing for them, and it's $1,800, and the whole thing is done. And if you'd like us to help you write a book, just reply to this message and say, I want to write a book. And so every time we would send out that message, we'd get people respond back and say, I want to write a book. And then that would just start the whole process of, congratulations, what's your book going to be about? It's just so elegantly simple that way,
And how'd you come up with that, Dean? Because, most people in our space would be like, okay, well, let's get a lead magnet out there, let them download the lead magnet, and let's just start selling right away. Like no one, obviously you're a brilliant marketing mind, but what was the process? Yeah, obviously. but what actually, did you intentionally think about that when you started? What got you to that point of thinking, okay, well, I can either try to sell the benefits of a 90-minute book, or I can actually show someone the campaign that I just did. Yeah. Like what caused that decision or that choice to do it that way?
Well, I think part of it is that I always begin with the end in mind, knowing that that's where I know what point Z is, but I know that, like, I call it thinking like a chess master, and I start to think, what would be, you've got your click, capture, convert. Well, my whole thing, my 3 C's for our email mastery program are compel, convince, collaborate. That's good. So, when I look at it, if I can compel somebody to raise their hand, which is a curiosity-driven type of thing, right? Like, oh, I want that. What's that about? And that's where a book title, like Frank Kern right now is all over the internet with his 90-minute book about the how to get high-priced, high-paying clients, even if nobody knows who you are, right? That model is, the title is so compelling that people say, I want to know how to do that. And if you just strip away everything else and just get the people who want that while they're in that trance of, oh, I want that, that compelling is like a compulsion. It's a thing that is we're magnetized and drawn to under our own momentum to get good things, right? It's like that mouse with the cheese. They're compelled to seek out cheese, and there's nothing societally more bona fide than a book as an authority, as a value piece, as something that's conveniently packaged, easy to consume. So somebody, if you have a book title that is compelling to your audience, that's always where I start. What would be the title of the book that the person I want to be in a conversation with would definitely want to have?
Sure.
And so we've done things like that with doing with the adult acne cure for somebody who, looking for people who have adult acne. It's a great, use that as an example. And the 90-minute book is another example of that, right? Wow, how do you write a book in 90 minutes? So I start out with that. And then the convincing part is before I ever get to the point of presenting an offer or offering to collaborate with somebody. That's more the way I look at it, is I like to fuel their own goal and their own desire, and then present an opportunity for us to work together to get that goal. I can collaborate with you on that. I don't take a point of, I'm going to sell you this. It's like, I'm just fueling your own desire. So I thought through, what would be the list of mindsets or beliefs that a person would have to have before they're convinced that a 90-minute book is the thing to do and that they should do it right away.
Right.
So if they believed that they could do it easily, just like you said, they don't believe, it's one of the things that no trust, that they don't trust themselves to do it, that they maybe have thought about writing a book, but they haven't taken action on it.
Right.
And it feels like they have time. If I could show them, convince them that they could do it in 90 minutes, that would be kind of like the baseline. And then if they believed that once they had this book, see, I'm already convincing, I'm already building the belief that if they had the book, they could run a Facebook ad, and they could get people to opt in, and they could then offer people their service. See, right now, they've got their service, they've got their coaching, they've got their consulting, their product, whatever it is, and they've got these people that they want to serve, but they don't have a bridge to connect to. So if I show them that the most compelling tool that they can have in this capture mode here of yours is a book, then they are already building their own desire and their own belief to take action on that. So when I offer to collaborate with them, they're driving it. It's not me selling them on doing it,
That's so good. So in this process, you're actually just seeing. I love how you reverse engineer that, where like their ultimate goal is not actually to write a book.
No.
Their ultimate goal is to sell more of their services, and you're just positioning the book as the tool to help them get there.
That's exactly what it is. So I talk about the dream, right? About how they're going to use it, the promise, the result that they're going to get, right?
Right.
That's what I'm always focused on. So that's where that came. And if I show them how they can turn, because remember I said, I don't believe that everybody thinks that they could spend $1,000 a day on Facebook ads, but they could see themselves spending $150 a day.
Sure. Right.
If they just did it over a weekend, they'd be willing to spend $300 or $400 on something. Right. And when I show them how many leads I got for that amount of money, that makes it even, that's like insider information that they don't have access to, because they may think that it costs a lot of money to get leads,
Yeah. I love that. I mean, and this is what, we kind of discuss as well on our end, is just that, every step of that marketing process is doing two things simultaneously. Is one, capturing, getting the click, capturing the lead and converting them, but simultaneously it's also like working through objections. It's working on their psychology. It's giving them greater belief and aspiration to move towards their things. And I love that parallel track that you're talking about there.
Yeah. So give me some thoughts about how you would approach the email mastery here. So, because I'm going to be rolling that out as a as an evergreen thing. Right now, I've got a case study group going through right now that we started a couple of weeks ago, and so I've got a great sequence that, if I can get somebody to download the Email Mastery book, I've got an incredible process for engaging with those people and introducing the opportunity to collaborate by working together.
Right.
And so if I could crack the code on how to get through Facebook people to come and download the book, that would be a big scalable win. So how would you think through that process here?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, Facebook even it's constantly changing, and the things that are working now, just your ability to reach different people and how do you how would you approach that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think, our kind of three C process is we can delve deeper into each of those things just to kind of lay it out. I mean, so you already have the asset or the lead magnet that would be offering, and that's email mastery, which I think is fantastic. So now that we understand that we have this asset that is solving a very specific person's problem, I think the next question, and I'm speaking maybe partially to the beginner here, but the next question is, if I do in fact have this asset, who are the people that it's going to most help? I like to see it from a perspective, I call it ponds, lakes, and oceans. How do you, most people, yes, a question. You want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? And the uneducated answer is a small fish in a big pond, because then I never run out of, potential people I could reach, not realizing you're going to be swiped away. And so the educated answer for some people are just, well, I want to be the big fish in the small pond. And so when we like to think about, I have this asset, the next question is, well, who is this most likely to serve in the easiest way? Or what is my lowest hanging fruit? In other words, who is the pond? And we can do that one of a couple ways. I mean, Vilfredo Pareto, beautiful name, by the way, right? An Italian economist back in the 1800s came out with what we now know as the Pareto principle, and it's commonly understood as the 80-20 rule. Everyone's heard about it in many different ways, and I think it also applies to markets. So when we're thinking about a market, we could serve everybody for sure, but how do we bring that down and say, first, who's the 20% that we're serving? But I want to take it a step further, because I think in today's kind of social media world that even the 20% might still be, a red ocean, in context of the red ocean, blue ocean strategy.
Right, yeah.
I still think the 20% is in fact a red ocean. So I would take it a step further and say, who is the 20% of the 20%? Or what is the 96-4 rule? Who are your 4% that would make up your pond? Now, it's not meaning you're going to be staying in the pond forever. It just means let's go after the lowest hanging fruit first, so that you can get a few quick wins. You could test how well your process works, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to look at that. Who are the 4%? And I call it the targeting trifecta. I say, A, who are they following? So just like in your case, I believe that on the internet, every industry has tribes, and if there are tribes, then there are in fact tribal leaders. So rather than spending all this time trying to build your own tribe and spending all the money and effort and resources, well, why don't you identify tribal leaders and see if their audiences are in fact people that would be interested in what you had to offer? And you give a great example of that, where when Brendan Burchard was really leading with his Millionaire Messenger concept, he had spent ridiculous amounts of time, energy, and money to build a tribe.
Because I was running in Success Magazine, he's running in Success Magazine with the same thing, the Millionaire Messenger. So it's a great audience,
It is a great audience, and you've identified, there are tribes, people who have a message, who want to get it out to the world, and there's a tribal leader at that time, who was Brendan, who, had spent this time and money to build the tribe, so you can easily go after his audience on Facebook and say, well, these would be people who make up my pond, low-hanging fruit, people who kind of already understand the game here.
I shared that with, just as an aside, I shared that with Brendan, and he's like, So he says, so let me get this straight. Wait a second. So you're running ads against my audience, selling them stuff on how to be authors?
Right.
And I said, yeah, that's right. He goes, that's brilliant. It's so funny,
Well, between the two of us, and I haven't told Brendan this myself, but between the two of us, I love when he gets up on stage and says, I spend $1,000. If you're not spending $1,000 a day building your audience and advertising on Facebook, you haven't entered into the new millennium of digital advertising. And in my workshops, even laugh and I say, okay, well, if you're not quite there yet, business owner, let Brendan spend that money, and then you just kind of, I like to say, be a remora. Be that little fish that tags along underneath the shark and have kind of a mutual. You don't have to do all the heavy lifting. You can let them do it first.
We would always call that open source list building is what Facebook likes are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so the first kind of part of the targeting trifecta is in fact, who do they follow? The second part of the targeting trifecta is what do they frequent? So that's the second F. If we have follow, then the second one is frequent. What sites are they visiting regularly? What publications are they frequenting? I mean, it's easy for me to know that if someone is an avid reader of Success Magazine, that they're obviously interested in they're an entrepreneur and they're looking to do things that will obviously help them become more successful. If I know that a particular person is reading the Wall Street Journal every day, that would tell me certain things about them because of, again, the sites that they are frequenting. So once I had this as most exhaustive of a list as possible of people who are tribal leaders, people that, my ideal customer and client is following, my next list that I'm trying to build on this 3-column list here is what do they frequent? What publications are they reading? What sites do they go to often? Where are they going even in the offline world? Are they shopping at particular stores? What is it that they're frequenting? And that will give me a nice hefty list of people that I could potentially target as well. And then thirdly, part of the targeting trifecta, if we have those who do they follow, what do they frequent, the last thing is what do they fund? Or in other words, where are they actually spending money? So if I know that someone is, let's say, spending money or they're shopping at Whole Foods, that would tell me that they're obviously kind of taking care of their health. They have a little bit of discretionary income because Whole Foods, some people call it whole check. I mean, same thing somewhere else, they're going to spend it more there. It tells me a whole lot about them. If I know this is where they're actually spending money, this is where they're funding. That would, is a whole category of people that I could reach as well. And I think the sweet spot is in the middle. So if you know this is your pond now, if you know who are they following, what are they frequenting, and what are they funding, right in the middle of that, Venn diagram is my 4%. It's my 20% of the lowest hanging fruit of people that I could reach. So in your case, talking about email mastery, we'd go through that little bit of an exercise and find out who makes up the 4%, and that would be our initial targets that we would go after when we're running ads.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like this whole process is very like with Profit Activator number 1 is select a single target market, right at a time, and that's the thing. It's like you're not narrowing it down always, and for some, I would add to that even geography. Like I have to encourage people to put some artificial constraints on themselves. And I hadn't thought about it as a pond, a lake, or an ocean. But, if you can help everybody everywhere, that's kind of very broad. But if you narrow yourself to just Orlando or Toronto or whatever as a starting point here, that kind of narrows it down as well. So you can, really kind of ramp up the intensity of it. There's I heard a great thing about radio advertising that, the choice that people have to make often is reach or frequency. And the kind of approach that I'd heard was the question you have to ask is, do you want to convince 100% of the people 10% of the way, or would you like to convince 10% of the people 100% of the way?
That's so good.
And so that's kind of fits in with what you're saying about the pond, is by narrowing it down to your ideal, right? Like if we say, what's the result that you're able to create for people? And if you were taking the approach of, what would you do if you only got paid if they get the result?
Yes.
If you take that approach, then you stack the deck in your favor. And you say, if I'm only going to get paid if they get the result, then who's the best person that I could get that result for? What would have to be true about them to get that result? So if I say that, for me, for email mastery, the person would either be somebody who's got a big list of people that they are currently emailing, or they've built up this list of people. because that's a big opportunity there, or they are, or they've got a current influx of people that they're currently adding to the list. Like I always like to say, the big opportunity for where email mastery kind of picks up is with people who you've already got a list, or you've already figured out how to get people to join your list every day. Those are the ones that's where I immediately start.
Yeah,
so
and I love
would
that.
say, mm-hmm.
And I think also Facebook will, with just a little bit of thinking through these exercises that we're talking about here, Dean, like it's very easy to start identifying who they follow, where they frequent, and what they fund. I know if we're talking about people with email lists, well, there's a whole ton of autoresponder services who have followings on Facebook. Yeah. So I love how you're saying that. It's just really when you can identify that 4%, like the actual, and again, beautiful concept that I know you've come up with. It's who would you be going after if you only did in fact get paid after you did, generated a result for them? Who are those people? That's a great starting point for everybody to realize, okay, if those are the people, how do I find them on Facebook? And they're very easily findable as long as you just kind of know a couple of things that you can do on the targeting side of things.
And then what's the lakes and the oceans, or are you just using that as the comparison of the size and what we're
No, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
So the ponds are the lowest hanging fruit, and these are the people who we want to go after first. Now, the good part about that is, again, they are in fact the lowest hanging fruit. So we would see the highest conversion rates and the highest results, and these are people who are going to be the most forgiving with a bad funnel because they just need the result. The downfall to that, though, is that those ponds aren't necessarily scalable should we want to start going big down the road.
Right.
So that's where we start going into lakes. And to me, the easiest way to understand lakes, and there's many kind of areas that we can talk about for lakes, but to me, especially when we're talking about Facebook, I would say let's say you got 1,000 customers, so 1,000 people who have decided to trade some sort of currency in exchange for what it is that you have to offer. That makes up a decent pool where now you could go to Facebook and say, well, Facebook, I have all this demographic data about 1,000 people who've spent money with me. Can you help me out and go into the Facebook world and identify people who are just like these people? Now, Facebook calls that a lookalike audience. And I like to say you need at least 1,000 people in a particular bucket to make that lookalike audience even more effective. But that would be one way that we would identify who a lake is. So now that we have all these customers and we want to reach even more customers, but we're kind of running out of the specific interest groups that we're going after, we can go to Facebook and say, hey, create a lookalike audience, an audience that looks a lot like these people in this pool here. And Facebook, of course, because they have all of this demographic data on everybody who uses their platform, it does a pretty good job at identifying who those people are. So now our smaller ponds have turned into bigger lakes, but it's a easy shift into that lake because we already have all this demographic data on people that we're going after. And so we start to create these lookalike audiences that we can reach through our targeting that way.
Let me ask you something clarifying then, because so is part of the thing about the ponds not only the specificity of who it is, but the size? What would be like the context for the size of audience that you would like to see to start with? Because I know that typically people, and that was, in the beginning when I was doing the things with 90-minute book or even that, you can be sloppy in a way that I was just saying, okay, just people who like Brendan Burchard or people who like Frank or Eben or any of the guys that I've had exposure already to their audience. So there's likely that they know who I am and they know there's some context for me there. But, not really narrowing it down. I know that when most people kind of approach this, they think that, well, I want to go against, I'll take all of these. You start keyword kind of loading, right? To say, well, good. I've got 1 million people in this audience that I can reach here with the with this. But what is the kind of guideposts that you would use for the audience size for a pond?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of the ways I answer that is the actual size is not as important as much as the relevancy. Because if you go after, let's say, Brendan's audience, and he's up to like 4 million fans now or something crazy like that, that could still be a pond because of the relevancy. So we're really looking at like lowest hanging fruit. And then on the flip side, I mean, I know I've gone into very, very targeted markets, let's say personal trainers in rural UK, and that audience was maybe like 3,000 people. And some people would say, well, that's a waste of time and money with Facebook ads. Well, actually, we were able to pull high-ticket clients out of a pond of only 3,000. So we can go as low as 3,000 or as big as, let's say, Brendan's 4 million, and that would still, in my opinion, be considered a pond because of how relevant that audience was, as opposed to, simply its size.
So if we're saying like, and that's encouraging to know when you think about it, like, just for transparency here, like I'm thinking through for myself here too. So thinking that the, to go with I wouldn't have thought to narrow it as small as 3,000 or so a 5,000 person pond would be a great place to start.
Sure, and I think the only kind of caveat that I would put to that is, you mentioned some people like keyword load and they try to put all these audiences together in one bucket. The only thing I would suggest is when you are targeting, in fact, these very particular interests, and however you're narrowing them down, that you just reserve one interest per ad set. So what you're doing essentially here, because I've seen a lot of people say, okay, well, let's go after Kern and Pagan and Brendan and Tony. Let's lump them all into one pile.
I've done that. Yeah. Because I'm thinking, well, I want to ramp this up and spend. I want to spend, of course, I'm in a situation where I sit in the same room as you sat there and Brendan say, spend $1,000 a day. I'm like, yes, okay, let's do that. Let's load this up. Let's take Frank and Evan in this and spend me $1,000 a day. I say to my guy, and that's, Which on that side note, it's crazy. And on that side note, I'd probably owe Brendan a whole heap of money because I don't know how many people have come to me and said, Brendan told me I need to be spending at least and you're the guy that could help me spend it.
But the reason we separate them out is simply because let's say you lump them all together and you start running ads against them and you start getting, just for really easy numbers, $5 leads. What you won't know is, well, what if Brendan's audience is in fact getting you leads for $1 and Tony's audience is getting you leads for $9, and so they're averaging out at $5. You wouldn't know that if you had them all lumped together. So that's why no matter what you're doing, you do want to separate them out because that's going to give you greater visibility on which audiences are actually producing leads and or sales at a pace that you're comfortable with. So that would be the only caveat that I see a lot of people make a mistake on. They just go for mega big audiences and they'll lump people together, and they just won't know who's performing versus who's not.
Right. And what's the realm of like what you would like to see for just some of those numbers that you were talking about in terms of the cost per lead?
Cost per lead,
capture? Yeah. What would you say? Like, what if you every situation is different, but I mean, certainly, what would be some of the highs and lows, I guess?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of that is in fact industry specific. But if we're just going to make some kind of generalizations, let's say, I would like to see lead magnet leads come in between $1 and $3. That would tell me that we're in a pretty good range. If someone was offering a webinar, I would like to see those webinar leads come between $3 and let's say $7. That gives me a nice comfortable range. And different things that people are, if someone's offering just a straight up strategy session to get someone on the call to try them, enroll them in their high ticket program. I mean, obviously you're going to spend a lot more money for that. But I would say this, and this is a caveat that our friend Ryan Dice, keeps promoting, and we were having a conversation about that a couple of weeks ago. Is that the goal for most people is, how do I generate the cheapest lead humanly possible?
Mm-hmm.
I think the mindset should shift to the point of what is the most I am willing to pay for a lead to still be profitable?
See, there's the thing. And that just ties into exactly where I look at this from for email mastery.
Right.
That if I can help somebody who is getting opt-ins for $3 right now with a lead magnet, or getting $7 opt-ins for a webinar, if I can help them with a 90-minute book get that $7 webinar opt-in for $2 for an ebook or for the book opt-in, and help with the conversational conversion process to convert more of the people that they get opted in, then ultimately that will allow them to be able to spend more money. Because ultimately, you're absolutely right. Like, I was hoping to, open that conversation with that. Really, it's a factor. It's all the math. You have to begin with the end in mind. If you're selling a $29 book, then you obviously can't pay $7 for an opt-in to get somebody to do that. But if you're let's say you're selling an email mastery program for $1,500, you can afford to pay a little more, right? If you're saying, what would you cheerfully pay for a new client?
Sure. And on that note, Dean, I think it's important, and there are two key questions I like to ask every client that we end up working with, or any people that we end up teaching to do this for themselves. And this kind of brings perspective to what we're saying here. Question number one essentially is, what is the 30-day value of a lead to you?
Right.
Now, I don't like to say 90-day or lifetime value, because those numbers kind of get a little blurry over time, and it's hard for people to figure that out. But if you can be very clear about what a 30-day value of a lead is to you, then you're at a great starting point. And the second question, the follow-up question to that then, is what percentage of that value are you willing to spend on acquisition to still be profitable? And you should hear the numbers that come out. I mean, some people are like, well, I'm only willing to spend 25% acquisition. Some people are 50. But get this. Some people, Dean, say 110%. And so
I get it, because they know that long term.
Exactly. So the average person would be like, why on earth would I spend more to acquire a lead than what that lead is actually worth to me? And you just nailed it on the head. When you know your numbers, and like you said, it is simple math. Two things happen. One, you could spend a little more up front because you know lifetime value. But two, your ability to outspend your competition is what's going to keep you in the game and allow you to, mitigate against rising lead costs in general on Facebook. It's going to allow you to mitigate against any potential, changes that are happening, and allow you to increase margins and mitigate against all that other kind of stuff. So, I think, those are the two questions that anybody who's about to go into a paid media or paid traffic scenario needs to have the answers of, because if you do know those answers, you essentially bake in the ROI from day one of your campaign. Because if you know the value of a lead is $5 to you, and you can spend up to $5 to still come out on top, that means that for every lead you get for $1, you're 4xing or 5xing your return. And that's just a comfortable feeling to have, where when you go into the paid media space, you're not rolling the dice and hoping and praying and thinking, oh, I really hope this is going to work out for me. You just know for every dollar you spend, you're going to make that much more back. And so you can go into it with a lot more confidence.
That makes total sense. That's one of the questions I always ask people is, what would you cheerfully pay? Because I get people to think about the before unit as a vending machine.
Right.
And so, the during unit is where they actually deliver the value. So, we say if the during unit of email mastery is the delivery of the course and the community that we're serving there, the before unit would be delivering people who want to join that community. They're going to pay $1,500 to take part in that. And if you look at the percentage of the initial sale that you would cheerfully pay, if you look at there's kind of an established benchmark for that for most online digital things. Everybody keeps thinking, well, how can I get JVs and affiliates and those things, which they'd end up paying 50% right away. It would be would at least. You're absolutely right that they would be happy to pay 50, or if it's like a ClickBank product, they might pay 75 or 80% of the price to get that client. And I look at it that once you establish that benchmark, if you could do it on your own through paid traffic, through Facebook, through PPC, whatever, that your goal is you could get it for less than that. So
and without the headaches.
And without the headaches. That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, so I wonder, I'm thinking about like how do I calculate the 30-day lead value in my situation, where I guess you'd have to think about that was going to be a factor of the conversion process, right?
Of course.
If we know, so if I said, if I get, if I got 1,000 opt-ins today, right now, if we could push a magic button and then see how many of those could I convert with an offer to collaborate on their email sales process in the next 30 days. That would set a benchmark for what a bundle of 1,000 opt-ins today is worth. And so I could get to a number that, backing into it, would give me how much I could afford to pay. So if I said, so how would you look at those numbers, like on something similar to what you know about email mastery? What would be the kind of conversion numbers that you would see typically in a situation like that? And I don't want to say typically, but what would be in the your kind of conservative expectation for something like that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think a lot has to do, obviously, with the offer and the guarantees and the price points and all that. I mean, so it's a lot easier to convert a cheaper product than it is a more expensive product. And then it's also obviously easier to convert something where there's a great conversion process in place versus not. But in your case, I mean, what we just see generally across the board, and this is specifically to cold traffic, which obviously operates very differently than warm or endorsed traffic. But in cold traffic, I think what we're seeing across the board average of what we see is, a 1% conversion in the immediacy of your initial funnel is considered average. 1 to 3% is considered good. 3 to 5% is considered great, and anything above 5% is considered excellent. I would typically advise someone to stop traffic if their conversion rate was less than 1%, to try and figure out what might be going on in order for them to kind of clean some stuff up that way.
And there's the thing, like I always look at, with this, like my approach with direct mail or print or things like that is that I always take the approach of, you don't have to spend a lot of money to answer a question that you can answer with less money. Like, so do you know what I mean? It's like, I know when I'm testing direct mail, like postcards, I'll test in groups of just 1,000 postcards. I'll mail 1,000 postcards. And I know, because all I'm looking for the home run or that it's a loser. And you can't hide either one of those in 1,000. Where it gets gray is if you get a middling result, Like I would say, if it's, if it looks okay, you don't know where to go. But I look at, you can't bump up a loser with more volume.
Right.
But you can't,
although people try.
you can't hide a winner either.
Right.
You can't hide a home run.
Right.
If I know that ultimately we have a universe of 100,000 to mail to or more, I rather than spend the money to mail 10,000 postcards as a test.
Yeah.
I'd rather have 10 shots at figuring out what the big winner is, because the variation between one approach versus another is going to point me in the right direction of the winner. So would that approach be something that would work for Facebook as well? Like if I look at thinking through, what would it, how many people is it going to take me to get 100 opt-ins or 1,000 opt-ins, and kind of go from
what I love
there.
about Facebook and what you were talking about is that you can mitigate that risk even further. So with direct mail, let's say you're doing postcards and you decided to do 10 1,000-piece runs with variations in them to see which one works best. And you probably wouldn't do them at the same time either. You'd want to see how they work. The beauty with Facebook is, when you spend that money on the 1,000 postcard run, you literally spent it. You got to wait and see what happens. And if, let's say accidentally, and I know you wouldn't do this, but let's say accidentally there was a typo there, or one was clearly bombing and it just wasn't working. It's not like you can call them back and say, hey, hold up on that run. I know you already sent 400 out for the next 600. Give me a refund and let's figure something. You can't do that. Whereas on Facebook, we could put up an ad in a matter of minutes. We can let that ad run, and in a matter of hours, no matter what the reason should be, but in a matter of hours or maybe even one day, without much risk at all, because we can regulate budgets, we can basically look at an ad and say, is this working? And basically our approach is scale or bail. Is it working within the numbers that we're looking at? If the answer is yes, then we scale. If the answer is no, then we bail, and there's really no emotion to that whatsoever. But the beautiful part is literally we can make decisions within, I'd like to say about 24 hours, because it takes just about that for Facebook to optimize a particular campaign. But you could do that all day long, and to even preserve your budget a little more. And this is getting a little technical, Dean, so forgive me for this. But if we have if we have someone who's running ads already, they say, well, what should my daily bid be for a particular ad set that I'm running? Our general rule of thumb is 4 to 5x your goal cost per lead. So if your goal cost per lead, and this is only when you start out, but if your goal cost per lead, again, for the sake of easy numbers, is $5. If I can get leads under $5, I'm happy. Then my starting bid for that particular ad set would be between $20 and $25. So between 4 and 5x what my goal cost per lead is. And the reason is that is twofold. Number one, it gives Facebook enough room to get more than one lead. If I just set that up at $5, the problem with that is if I just get the one lead, that's all I get, and it's kind of all said and done. Now, you also don't want to put that at $150 a day, because let's say that doesn't work. Then you could be overspending on your test.
Oh, so you're saying on the budget, not on the each click. You're not saying set your per click budget at $20.
Correct. Yeah, we're talking about the overall daily budget.
Daily budget of $20 to $25. Right. Okay. I was thinking, how do you back into that math if you're $20 per click? Yeah. Yeah,
that probably just wouldn't work no matter what niche you're in.
I gotcha. Okay.
But this way, it's a nice way to get started, because then you're on the one hand, you're protecting yourself from overspending. On the other hand, you're giving Facebook enough room to get more than one lead to see if this particular ad copy and image going to this particular audience is in fact going to be a winner or not for you. So
I gotcha.
Doing it that way just eliminates most of the risk, because you're never going to really overspend, and you can pivot as fast as you want to, depending on what kind of results that you're getting.
I got you. So you're looking. So it's better to if you were willing, like, a guy like me, I look at doing things. So I would say to the thing, I'm trying. I want to get to a point where I'm spending $1,000 a day, and so I
Right.
say, okay, well, I'll set my daily budget at 250 just to test, and I'll run it for. I try and compress things. So I'll say for 24 hours, and then I'm trying to do that. But you're saying I'm like the guy sending 10,000 postcards when I could get the answer for. I'm spending $250 when I could get the same answer for $25.
Right. And then once you
Yeah.
find which one of those ad sets are working, well, then by all means, increase your ad spend at that point for sure. But Facebook's algorithm it's a little bit tricky, and some of the higher ups that we know at Facebook, even they can't fully explain it to me. But what we do know is if you try to spend too hard and too fast, or too much and too fast, you do in fact mess up the algorithm, and what could be a winning campaign for you ends up being a losing campaign. And here's how I know this. I've had so many people who were starting, and let's say we're spending, $100 or $150 or $250 a day, and they're ROIing with very great numbers. So obviously they call me up and they say, Nick, triple the spend. Let's spend 1,000 instead of 250, or let's, whatever it be. And then as soon as anyone who has ever tried to do that, they will notice that their cost per acquisitions go through the roof and they tank.
Yes.
I sense that was a little bit of an experiential yes, Dean.
That's funny. Yeah, exactly. It's very funny.
So there is an algorithm that you need to follow in order to scale properly. But if you do scale properly, I mean, for some of our clients right now, we're spending over $100,000 a day with no issue.
That's so great, right?
But you can't go from $20 a day to $100,000 a day. Obviously, that doesn't work.
Right.
You just want to be able to do it. Not in one day, definitely.
But what you're saying too is that ultimately the $100,000 a day spend started out by testing with a $25 spend.
Exactly.
Is that true? Yeah. Okay.
That's 100% true.
I gotcha. Which of the percent? I know we've gone over the hour here, but we're having some good stuff here. Are you okay to keep going for a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. We may have ourselves a 2-part episode here if we keep this up. That the numbers, what do you pay attention to in those tests? Like looking at the percentage of click-through, on the ad. Like, I say that sometimes I would be guilty of saying, I don't really care about that. I'm really just focused on what's the percentage on the landing page. But
sure.
it all matters, right? So,
it does. And I think in light of that, there are what would be potentially a little more vanity metric versus what is a value metric.
Yeah.
So stuff like, let's say click-through rate. I think click-through rate is a great metric to watch because it tells you how well your audience is responding to your ads. But at the same time, if that's kind of a key performing metric that we use to either cancel a campaign or let it to continue to run, actually doesn't serve us very well. Cost per click is another one of those. So in the world that I live in, which is essentially top of funnel lead generation, remember we've asked the 2 initial questions of A, what is the 30-day value of a lead to you, and then B, what percentage of that can you spend on acquisition? If I know those numbers, then really ultimately at the end of the day, my most important metric that I'm watching is in fact cost per lead. Because when I trace back to that, and we trace back that lead all the way through to a sale oftentimes, and what I notice is that the ones that are generating the sales oftentimes are the one that's costing me the most to get the click with. And so if I just stopped and said, oh, geez, I'm paying a little more than I'm comfortable with on a cost per click standpoint, and I abandoned those ads, I would have been leaving sales on the table. So I think it's important to track all the way through, and obviously return on investment is the ultimate, or return on ad spend is the ultimate metric that we're watching. But I like to simplify it saying my key metric 9 times out of 10 is the cost per lead, and what do I need to do to make that better? And sometimes that's tweaks on the landing page, or sometimes that's tweaks in the ad copy or the creative or whatever it be. And then secondary to that, yes, I'm watching stuff like frequency. I'm watching stuff like click-through rates. I'm watching stuff like cost per clicks, but those are not going to be kind of red light, green light factors for me. They're just giving me kind of a broader view of what's actually going on with them.
Yeah. And those are valuable. Like, I would imagine, like, my approach, this is how I would think about it. So maybe tell me if I'm off track on this, that if I were thinking about it, I don't know what those numbers are right now from Facebook to to tell you what the 30-day lead value is for email mastery. Sure. But what I know is that I would, let's say that I'm willing to spend up to 50% of that as $750. But let's say even to get these metrics that I would be willing to spend $1,500 just to get the knowledge,
to pay for data.
To get the data. If I could break even and learn from that how to adjust the knobs and dials to get it down to $500 or $250, that would be thrilling, you know?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great...
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think you brought up a perfect point there, is that because the question or the objection that comes up and says, well, Nick, what if I don't have that data? Then you just got to go into month number 1 with the perspective of, okay, I'm going to be purchasing data this few weeks. And a lot of people have a hard time with that, but sometimes that's the best tuition you can pay for, because if you know what your data is telling you, then all you need to do is reverse engineer the data and make the tweaks that you need to make it a profitable campaign. So that's a great point, Dean, where people really sometimes, if you don't have the data, say, well, I'm going to allocate X number of budget towards purchasing data, trusting that I may not get a return on this, but I am going to get an education, which is going to allow me to get a return, the next time through.
So that might be an approach that I would say, okay, that would be a reasonable thing to say, is let's say, okay, I'm gonna allocate $1,500 here for the 30 days here to get the data here between now and Christmas, let's say.
Sure.
That I'm going to be willing to spend or invest $1,500 and know that the lead in of this is if I just say that's if I try and target towards a $5 opt-in, that worst case scenario, what I would have is I would have spent $1,500 and gotten 750 opt-ins, and which I know that's going to turn into something down the road, even if none of them converted initially. That's the worst case, is that I've got those 750.
Right. That the worst case you walk out of that experience with is a whole heap of leads that you can someday do something with as you extend that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of email marketer would I be, really, Nick, if I couldn't turn some number of 750 opt-ins into clients that I can collaborate with? That would be a shame, wouldn't it?
Well, you said it, not me, but I'll just come into agreement with you.
I think I believe in me. I think I believe in my abilities. That's funny. Okay, what else? What have I not asked? I guess what would be the next thing. I say this has been very helpful for helping me clear up my stuff here too.
I think the only other thing that could be hanging in the balance is maybe, and again, this can be a whole 90-minute conversation, so we're not going to go there necessarily. But I think one of the kind of, now that we have the lead magnet, we know what's being offered, we know how to kind of structure some of the bidding and what our approach to that would be. We know what we're looking for on the landing page and how we need to follow up after that. Maybe I could give one or two kind of tips or tricks on crafting, a highly converting ad. So no one's kind of stuck thinking, well, geez, how on earth am I supposed to,
why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that? And the formats of the ads. Like if I look at the, you hear me tearing pages from my notebook here. We're moving on to my 6th page here. No, okay.
Awesome.
So that's good. The ad, the content, the format, and choosing, newsfeed versus right hand versus mobile.
Right. So just for the sake of this conversation and for the sake of keeping things very clean and easy, although we can deviate and talk about some samurai tricks if we need to, I'm going to suggest that for the person who is starting out or is doing well and just needs to improve, we're going to say we're primarily going to go with newsfeed ads, and they're going to be full kind of conversion-based ads. So if our objective is to capture the lead, then our objective from a campaign standpoint is a website conversion, which means that it's going to allow us to put copy, it's going to allow us to put an image, it's going to allow us to use a headline and some sub-headline kind of copy all throughout that. Now, what I will say, because you did bring this up, between desktop and mobile, we say run both. I mean, the traffic is heavily mobilely biased right now on Facebook. So the one thing I will say about that is if you are setting up newsfeed ads, which is where we're going to kind of be our safe place right now, when you're setting up your ad sets, you're going to separate newsfeed mobile and you're going to separate newsfeed desktop. If you put those two together, what tends to happen is Facebook is going to favor the mobile, and your desktop users are not, in fact, going to see the ad. So if we separate it out, that just gives us a little bit more control to let us know, is desktop converting better or is mobile converting better?
I consider myself smart then, because that was my choice. Desktop newsfeed, right. Yep.
Now, that being said, and here's just maybe a little side samurai trick that we are in fact testing and we're finding some great results with. And this is, we were having a conversation when you were here in Toronto about Cialdini's newest book, Persuasion.
Yes, love it.
So as I was reading that book, and thank you for the recommendation, by the way, as I was reading that book, something caught out to me that I really wanted to test, and that was this. I said, well, we all know that when we're on any platform for that matter, but specifically for Facebook, that on the right-hand side, that those are clearly ads. And I think the general population has been conditioned to ignore ads. That's just how it kind of goes. So, our general rule of thumb for so many years has been, well, ignore the right-hand rail ads for the time being, unless you're going to do some retargeting or something like that where people already are familiar with you, then you could go into that space. But based on Persuasion, I decided to try something interesting. I decided to, on the right-hand rail, put ads which were just image-based of my image. Now, traditionally, I wouldn't actually encourage someone to do this because if you're going after a cold market, the person doesn't know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, your picture is probably not going to get them to opt into anything. But what I did notice was that if those images are on the right-hand side, Dean, subconsciously, people are ignoring it, but they are seeing your image.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of the numbers from Persuasion that are just like mind-blowing. So you're right. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, so what I wanted to see is, will my newsfeed ads perform better if I did, in fact, have some subconscious kind of right-hand rail ads going with just my image and not really much of a call to action or no real desire to capture the lead on that right-hand side versus if I didn't. And the experiment is still young, admittingly, but what we are noticing is when we run them side by side, our newsfeed ads actually get better performance because I believe that subconsciously there's something going on to say, well, wait a second, I've seen that guy before. I just keep seeing him. Who is he? And the branding that comes with that actually lends to the direct response that's coming from the newsfeed. So that's just kind of a side little tool there.
I have such a you to remind me later. I have such a top secret covert thing to share with you that I'm going to test. So I want to revisit that conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to want to talk about that now or?
No. We'll do it. Okay. I mean, I want to test it along with you. We can do something there, but I think it could be huge. That's good. Okay.
Got it. Okay. So when it comes to the ad, again, we could spend a whole ton of time with this, but I think there are three important elements that cannot be ignored in any ad. And the acronyms that I like, not the acronyms, the words I like to use to jog that memory is look, hook, and took. So look represents capturing attention. The reality is that someone on Facebook is probably scrolling through their news feed at light speed, and as a result, if you can't capture their attention first, your greatest acts of persuasion and influence are going to be all for naught, because if you first catch attention, then none of the other stuff matters.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at an ad, what's the easiest way I can capture attention? Well, Facebook is a heavily image-driven platform. So what I've noticed is that the 80% of success that comes from capturing attention is actually going to rely on the image selection that you choose. So there's two general rules that I do with images. Rule number one is that it's got to pop. In other words, it's got to stand out from all the other images that are in the newsfeed. Well, how do I do that? Well, number one, and this is kind of just some samurai stuff that we've been using. You simply throw that into Photoshop and increase the contrast by 30% or so. Simply, when someone is scrolling through their newsfeed, if they see image after image after image after image, and then one that just pops a little harder than everyone else, all of a sudden they're going to stop in their tracks, and you have that split second to see if they're going to start reading your copy. So I would think you can either do that, or you could do the opposite, which would be put it to grayscale or black and white. Again, if they're seeing color image after color image after color image, and all of a sudden there's a black and white image, that's going to stop them in their tracks, and you have a split second to catch attention there. So that would be, kind of an image hack that I think anyone can kind of deploy almost immediately to capture attention. That's the look. Then we move on to hook, and hook is all about creating connection. So if look is all about capturing attention, then hook is all about creating connection. And I think there's multiple ways to do this, but one of the ways that I like to talk about here is, I realize I'm not a great copywriter. I've studied great copywriters. I've done my best, and I'm not a great copywriter. But in today's kind of Web 2.0 social media-driven world, I think what trumps perfectly written copy is when your copy can actually create connection with the person who's reading it. So I think, I don't know who I heard say this, but I think someone had said that great communication is not when your ideal prospect understands you, but when that ideal prospect feels understood by you.
Yeah,
So in our ad copy, amongst many other things, but in our ad copy, we are making every intention to create connection through our words. And one of the easiest ways I find to do that is through a simple copy sequence that I guess someone stated is known as feel, felt, found. In other words, your copy sequence will not necessarily use these words, but they will convey these messages of, hey, I know how you feel. I have felt the same way too, until I have found this very thing that I'm giving you. So maybe for email mastery, it could touch upon the feeling and felt portion. I think is when someone's going to make a decision based on 4 motivating factors: fears, frustrations, wants, and aspirations. So if we can identify those things and communicate them, maybe an email mastery could be something along the lines of, I at one point in my life, maybe I'm writing as you, and you would clean this up for sure. But it would be, at one point in my life, I had this great message that I wanted to share with the world. But no matter what I did, I could not, generate leads with this message or whatever it be. Essentially, you want someone to say, hey, I know how you feel with that. So I know how you feel. I felt the same way too. I know what it's like to struggle not to be able to get leads with my message until I found this simple system that I call email mastery. It's kind of the feel, felt, found thing. So the real goal here is no matter how good or bad of a copywriter you may perceive yourself to be, if you can inject copy that creates connection through the feel, felt, found kind of formula, I think you're going to be way better off, and people are going to naturally, again, in a social context, are going to just say, hey, I that guy's speaking to me. I need to know what he has to offer. Then I take that next step with him. So we got look and we got hook, which is capture attention. We got look, which is capture attention. We got hook, which is create connection. And then thirdly, took, which is give someone action. In other words, we know that in our space as a call to action. And here, Dean, here's how I came across this the first time. I had written an ad, and it was for a lead magnet. And one of the first comments in the ad was, yes, I want it. How do I get it?
Perfect.
And I'm thinking, geez, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Wait,
click the bloody ad. I mean, But then it dawned on me that not everybody knows exactly. Yeah, it wasn't being clear.
Right. Yeah.
So now, for the love of God, every element I can possibly put in an ad, I'm going to put some form of call to action that blatantly says, click here.
Yeah.
To get the very thing that I just told you I want to give you. And you could do that in in the above ad copy. You can maybe factor that in even to your image. You can put that in the headline. You can put that in the sub-headline text. You can even put it in the display URL. I mean, just give people clear instructions on what they need to do in order for them to get the very thing that you're asking them to take. Now, of course, there's variations and things we can do with that. Like, for example, remember, the point of the ad is to get the click. So, in our copy, we always like to put a hyperlink because naturally if they see a hyperlink, someone has the intention to want to click on it. So that's
right in the ad,
Right in the ad. Yeah, absolutely. So various things like that. But I think if someone, when is crafting an ad, they can take a few steps back and think about look, hook, and took. How can I capture attention? How can I create connection? And then how can I give someone specific action? Their ads are going to start outperforming their previous ads, and they're going to get even better results.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And those formats in that news feed situation, if I were trying to create the equivalent of what I did with the Success Magazine ad, for instance, and there's maybe an example of a great pond would be the people who like Success Magazine on Facebook. Right. There's probably a great community there. Right. Okay. So what I had been experimenting with was creating a post. Like, I've done some boosted posts for my email mastery page just recently of basically taking that article, turning it into a post, and having the call to action be to go to email mastery.
Right.
But I found that underperforming.
Yes.
So would it be to just get the hook of click here to go to a page where I recreate that article there to then have them download the book? That's what you're saying would be the...
Yeah, 1,000%. Because I think, I mean, we've tested really, really long form copy in our ads, and I think there's just a lot of resistance for someone who's scrolling newsfeed and is not used to spending time on one ad. So I would, in fact, recreate the advertorial on some sort of a web page, but then rather than at the end of that advertorial having a call to action to go to a second web page, I would just allow them through a shadow box, click a button to pop up a shadow box, opt in, and opt in right there. And then, the side note to that would be, put a retargeting pixel on that page so that anybody who doesn't opt in the first time, you're obviously going to retarget them back to that page or another page for that matter. With a supplementary offer that's going to help capture that lead if it doesn't in fact work out that first time.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of utilizing, and what you can do if you were to take that advertorial and embed it on an actual HTML web page or using some sort of landing page creator, is that you can actually give them multiple options to opt in. I mean, through your through hyperlinks, mid-text.
Yeah, put the book, put a picture of the book in the sidebar with the form right there, and then a link at the bottom, and all those above the fold, to the right, on the bottom, all of that. You create
everywhere
that environment.
You can. Exactly. I think it's a great kind of alternative landing page. That tends to perform quite well in social context now because again, I think a lot of the times social users are a little bit jaded with the traditional opt-in page. Now, granted, they work like gangbusters, so I would never advise anyone to stop. But some people are just jaded by it, and they feel like people are hiding behind the landing pages. And so sometimes when you can offer content first, and here's another play that I do often, is I might drive them to the original opt-in page first. Now, you get massive opt-in rates, so it's kind of crazy. But let's say you drive them to the original opt-in page first, and for the 40% or 30% that don't opt in, you retarget them to your advertorial landing page.
Yes, right.
Because maybe they didn't have enough on that initial page to get them to want to opt in, but now if you can pre-frame them with further content, now you have a higher probability of them opting in that second page, and vice versa, right? So you have options when you have multiple landing pages that you can deploy.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, you've said it all, basically.
Well, you've said it all. I've just kind of filled in some gaps.
I think I've wrung you dry of all the information I can get from you. No, I don't believe that for a second. That's the tip of the iceberg. I really think what this is going to be the most useful for people who are thinking about Facebook as an opportunity for them. I think, and to hear this is the way. I think I found it very useful to have this conversation with you, so I appreciate that.
Well, I'm so glad.
Where would you direct people to go, start their journey with you or with the through Facebook in general? What kind of next steps would you have people take?
Sure. I think there's one of a couple options, and thank you for asking. I mean, one option is we have a Facebook group called Facebook Marketing Mastery. It's 100% free. There's about 13,000 people in there, and it's growing at about 100 people a day. And it's just an awesome community of Facebook advertisers everywhere from beginners all the way to some of the most elite in our space who are all just sharing some great content. So if anyone's in that space, Facebook Marketing Mastery is a Facebook group that I encourage anybody to join and just kind of join that community. Secondly, if you've heard stuff like this and you found like the 3C process to be valuable, the click, capture, convert, but you feel a little bit overwhelmed and having to figure out how to do this yourself, we hold 6 two-day intensives throughout the year where we put 20 business owners together in a room. And our big promise is this. Look, you arrive with whatever you have, and you leave with your top-of-funnel lead generation system built with me right there on the spot. So you're not leaving with a to-do list. You're leaving with a done list, and you're having the opportunity to have me look over your shoulders and do some work with you that way. So you can get that information at nicholaskusmich.com/intensive. Again, nicholaskusmich.com/intensive, and there's all the information about that. And then, of course, every so often I'll write, good piece of content on my blog. I should be writing a lot more than I do now, but I commit to, getting some more good content out there. So all things me can be found at nicholaskusmich.com, including what we do and how we do it, and some content and all that's around there as well. So those are the various ways someone can kind of reach out and see what we're up to.
Perfect. And where can someone get your book?
The book is being worked on, Dean.
Oh, that was a trick question. You see that?
Yeah, I saw. That's a great setup. I'm gonna have to do a 90-day book here and just get her done.
Listen, we've done it. We could turn this into it. You've got.
Well, there you go.
You see what I'm saying? You didn't even know it, but you've written a book today.
You see that? That's so. If you haven't written a 90-day book, that's how you do it right there.
It's not the 90-day book. It's the 90-minute book.
90-minute book. I apologize. Yeah.
That's what most people think. That's their highest aspiration is to think, okay, 90 days. I'm going to get my book done in the next 90 days. But
I know.
We just spent 90
because
minutes.
Most people, it's a 9-year process.
That's exactly it. You just wrote a book and you didn't even know it.
You're absolutely right, Dean. And
right.
I don't know if that was the original intention, but if it isn't, I'm glad it's a byproduct.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. that would be a great thing for NicholasKusmich.com.
I agree, 100%.
A book on your process right there. So
you take me offline, you tell me how we can finalize that up, and I'd be more than happy to do that.
Perfect. We'll do it. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate the time. I think this is very valuable, and I think we'll get a lot of people started on the path here.
And I just thank you for the opportunity to hang out with you a little bit. Geniuses like you are help what makes the world and our world go around. So I appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dean.
Wow. That was a marathon, but the most valuable type of marathon. I got so much out of that. And I loved that as we, started going, I was realizing, man, this is kind of stuff that we could turn into a book. And that's really what this ends up. We got so much content in here that we've created a book for Nicholas. And so I think that we'll have some great, success with that. To be a great convenient way for you to revisit all the information that we talked about in this episode. And so stay tuned. I'll get you all the information about where we can get the book, and I'll put it in the show notes on morecheeselesswhiskers.com. And you can do two things there. First of all, you'll be able to get a copy of the More Cheese, Less Whiskers book, and we'll have a link to where we can get the book that we did here with Nicholas. But what I want you to understand, that some of the things that we were talking about in there, that really is how easy it can be for you to create a book. If you wanted to have that kind of a conversation where you're sharing your expertise and packaging it up in a book, I'd love to help you with that. If you go to 90minutebook.com, you can download a copy of the 90-minute book, exactly the way that, using that exact format that I used to create books. And you'll see that, there's nothing more powerful than a book as a lead magnet, especially if you're going to start doing this on Facebook. So check out 90minutebook.com or 90minutebooks with an S.com. Either one of them will get you to the place where you can start the journey of writing your own book. And I hope to be able to help you through that process. Okay. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next time.